Doug Green, and I'm the publisher of Telecom Reseller. And today I'm with Christian Stredicke, who's the CEO of Vodia. Christian, thank you for joining me today.
No problem. Thank you.
Well, this is an exciting podcast. We're going to get caught up with Vodia, see what's going on at Vodia, but we're going to dive deeply into how Vodia is using many of the tools that are available in the telecommunications market to deliver a rich set of solutions that users are able to use and that are really changing the way people work and operate and have their businesses communicate with the outside world. We're going to be diving into that in just a minute. But first of all, Christian, what is Vodia?
Yeah, at Vodia, we're making software for business communications. It's called phone system, but today it's a lot more than that. Yep.
And so, yeah, you know, almost we talk about phone system in the historical context of having, you know, some sort of setup that allows people to make phone calls and receive phone calls and so on. But you know, let's focus a little bit on the more than that. What do you mean when you say there's more to it than that?
Yeah, of course, the core is that A can talk to B, but it's in the real life, of course, a lot more. At the end of the day, we want to enable companies to interact with customers. That means not a specific person. We want to have like groups can answer calls. That means you don't want to talk to a specific person. You want to talk to a function. That means calls need to be routed to the right person. And we need to have accountability. We need to know who worked, how long, for what time. That means we'll be reporting about it. So there's a lot of stuff around that, which has a tremendous value, and it's kind of a necessity for a company to have this kind of information. So there's a lot more than just the basic call.
Now, early on, Vodia saw the benefit of a major technological breakthrough known as WebRTC.
Yeah, so the browser already killed a lot of applications if you think about it. I mean, in the 90s, we probably had like CRM systems written specifically for an operating system. And that over the years has all changed into the browser. And a lot of business software has actually exclusively been made available in the browser, if you think about it. And communications and real-time communications was always kind of lagging behind with that. And the WebRTC, I think, is a game changer because it makes now the voice, but also the video available through the browser on practically every platform that runs a browser. And I think that's the total game changer compared to what we had before. And at Vodia, we're trying to use that and translate essentially the technology we had so far into kinds of new environment and make that available for our users.
Now, WebRTC stands for Web Real-Time Communications, but what does that actually mean?
Well, web is like the web, the internet. I think that's where that comes from. And real-time means, of course, that delay is very critical. So when two people are talking, the round trip time for a voice packet is very important for the user experience. And like if you're using other technologies, you can have like a 2 to 2 seconds delay for a conversation, which makes that impossible. And what the WebRTC is doing is like a real time means as short as possible so that the user experience is really good. And that was the main point of that API.
Now, why is WebRTC, you know, WebRTC I think is now probably over a decade old. Why is it so relevant and why does it remain relevant?
Well, first of all, the browsers are everywhere. That means anybody who's logged into a browser can potentially use WebRTC, and there are more and more applications coming up. It's not only telephony systems. It's like, for example, think about social networks. They start heavily using WebRTC. So my kids are talking over WebRTC and they don't even know it. They don't care how it works, right? It just works. And it's just like this huge community. This is like a huge amount of users who are in front of the screen, who are in front of the browser, and it just opens up that possibility to have people talk to each other. And I think that's something that we have never seen before. And I think it's going to have a massive impact on the way we communicate.
So,
and by the way, it's a great thing that we have only one standard, right? I mean, it's fantastic that all the browser manufacturers really agree to that standard. And if you're using, let's say, browser type A and browser type B, they really work very well together. We don't have to worry about interoperability. That was always something that haunted us in the VoIP industry, that device A didn't really work with device B. But with the browsers, what's happening now is there's absolutely no question it's going to work, right? There's no problem like this manufacturer doesn't work with that manufacturer. This is all gone now. And that's the beauty of it. It's a really very solid standard. And you don't have to worry about this doesn't work with that. This problem has really, really been solved now.
So I have to ask, I'm going to channel our younger readers for a moment, younger readers.
Yeah.
Why not just use our smartphones?
Yeah, that's a very obvious question. And at the end of the day, of course, the smartphones also support WebRTC, because every smartphone today has a browser. I talked about that, right? And these mobile browsers also support WebRTC. And the way you make apps today is to a large degree that you write essentially a web page and you publish that in the form of an app. So that you may be installing an app, but what it really is essentially a website running inside that app. So I think there are a lot of apps right now being shipped with WebRTC in it, and the user has no idea that it is WebRTC, but they don't have to care because it just works, and everybody's happy. And the developers are happy as well because they can save a lot of work and a lot of time for developing that kind of stuff over and over again. They just use it.
So with this shift, and we've essentially, like you said, a lot of people through this pandemic and other situations have been using WebRTC without even knowing they're using WebRTC.
Yeah.
One of the impacts is, people are saying, now it seems like I'm available for work around the clock. There's no delineation between work and not work.
Right. So, I mean, technically that's all possible now. So you can work 24/7. Actually, what we have seen is that people, I was surprised, they're using really the browser and not the app for the PBX. And the answer was very simple, because they know when they close that browser tab, they are offline. That means nobody can call them. And that was an aha moment for us, and saying, hey, this is actually a very important point for user acceptance, that they have a total control over when they are available and when not, right? Talking about work-life balance. So essentially in the morning they log in, and then they are able to receive calls and obviously also make calls. But when in the evening they close that browser window, it's 100% clear they're not getting interrupted anymore. And that is something quite valuable and important. And I think it's even like a must-have if you want to do like a rollout in a company today, that you must kind of guarantee that people are not getting into this 24/7 mode. I mean, and we also did this for the apps as well, because on a mobile phone, if you're using WebRTC on a mobile phone inside your app, there is no simple way of just closing your tab, because that app is running 24/7. That's why on the server side, we did something and saying, okay, these are the working hours, and we only call employees during these working hours. So they can be sure they're not getting bugged, let's say 5 o'clock in the morning or on the weekend and these kind of inconvenient times. And I think that's something very, very important.
What about VoIP phones? Do they still have relevance?
Yeah, so the problem with the VoIP phones is most of them don't support WebRTC. Actually, practically all of them don't support WebRTC. They're still on the SIP protocol. And it's kind of great to be a technology visionary, right? And saying, hey, we just throw all that stuff away and we practice the new stuff. But practically, that's not working. I mean, from a practical point of view, there's just such a huge amount of devices out there, and they need to be integrated into the WebRTC environment. And now we're talking about gateway. So we need a gateway essentially from the old technology to the new technology. And I think that's an important and another must-have ingredient of a business communication system, that you can integrate like desktop phones and other devices and services. I mean, for example, ATAs are still around. There's still like door phones somewhere, and you need an analog line for this and that purpose. And also, just don't forget SIP trunks, right? We still need SIP trunks, and that is the same problem. You need to convert essentially the WebRTC to SIP and RTP for the SIP trunk, and that needs to be done through a gateway.
Well, let's talk about gateway. First of all, I understand that you actually have implemented a gateway that connects the VoIP phone to WebRTC.
Yes. So, I mean, the browser obviously includes the software that implements the WebRTC API, but the server doesn't. And so we had to go ahead and implement that part of the WebRTC API inside the server, so that you can call, for example, from WebRTC into the mailbox or into an IVR. And so the communication then is really between browser and server. So we have done that, and we can use that also for converting the traffic between the browser and the desktop phone, or the browser and the SIP trunk. And it was kind of crazy project. It was a lot of work, obviously. But in hindsight, we're definitely very happy that we did that, because now we have these possibilities to connecting like a lot of this existing equipment with the new cool stuff, with the browsers and the apps. And I think we have really like achieved like a level of like a choice of devices out there, which is really tremendous, and it provides so many possibilities to businesses. I think it's something really, really outstanding, unique in the industry, and yeah, I'm proud of that.
So, but can't the same be achieved with maybe desktop apps?
Yeah, I mean, the desktop apps, and some people are using like soft phones using the SIP protocol from the desktop. So like the old school, you can still do that, yes. But on the other hand, the desktop is usually very powerful. It can easily run like a browser inside an app as well. So that's why we prefer with our Vodia apps to use our own WebRTC-based implementation. Because you have to see the SIP protocol has limits when it comes to additional features. For example, if you want to set redirection targets, or you want to, for example, set your presence, status, name, or you want to upload your photo, right, your profile photo. These are all things that cannot be done over the SIP protocol, and that's where the SIP phones are struggling. I mean, the SIP soft phones on a desktop are usually don't give you any possibility to upload your profile image, right? But we can do that if we're using our own app. That's no problem, because we're just tightly integrated with the backend, and that's why I think the integrated apps are much more valuable than just using a generic SIP soft phone on the desktop.
What about SIP trunks?
Yeah, that's it's just a reality. I mean, there's so many SIP trunks out there, and that's a great thing to have. So we cannot just throw it overboard and then replace it with what, right? Actually, we were thinking about doing WebRTC trunks. First of all, I didn't find anything out there, so it seems to be maybe an opportunity. But on the other hand, it's kind of really hard to have like a protocol for that. So if you want to do termination today into the PSTN, you must use a SIP trunk. That's how it is. And again, I mean, we're able to convert the WebRTC to a SIP trunk, so for us it's no problem. And we'll see. Maybe there's something coming out that does native WebRTC in the future. We would definitely be happy to take a look at that. As of today, it just doesn't exist, right?
Now, with the onset of the Ukraine crisis, Russian-Ukraine conflict, security now is top of mind. Is WebRTC secure? It is, after all, an open source software. Right.
Open source is not bad for security. It's good for security because a lot of people can review what's been done. So that's a good thing. essentially 2 points here. One thing is like the encryption part of it, and WebRTC is a relatively new standard. It was developed with a lot of things in mind already. And underneath they're using DTLS. It's essentially like a UDP-based version of TLS. That means it's a very proven technology. That means they're not reinventing a wheel. So they're just using something that's out there for a long, long time and like deployed in so many places. And they're just using that for negotiating the SRTP keys between the endpoints. So from a privacy point of view, I think that is definitely top notch, the way to go. I know like some apps call it end-to-end encryption, and WebRTC is by definition, by the protocol standard, it is end-to-end encrypted, right? That's a fantastic thing. The other big topic is, right, DDoS. I mean, you've seen last year were a couple of attacks on DDoS. And I think one of the reasons why they were so bad is because SIP is not, I mean, from a global point of view, it's not a mainstream technology. I mean, especially the firewalls, they mostly deal about HTTP today, right? And they do a lot of stuff for protecting HTTP servers and traffic. But for SIP, we're talking like this is like a small part of the whole industry. That means they have a lot less choice on products. And also the UDP protocol is, in that respect, a little bit more difficult to protect. And I think that's essentially the reason why we see these problems with SIP. The good news about WebRTC is it's essentially based on HTTP. That means everything that was built for HTTP can now be used. And that's definitely the best protection you can get today. That means you can go to your cloud service provider and they all offer some kind of firewalls with like ridiculous amount of traffic they can deal with, right? Like number of packets per second and gigabits per second, they can all deal with that. And you can essentially run a WebRTC-based server in the internet protected by these services. And I think that's really the best you can have today. So I think that's also a great reason to choose the WebRTC technology.
So Christian, what will come after WebRTC?
Yeah, I really don't know. It's like what comes after the internet. I think with WebRTC, I'm pretty happy today. I think it addresses really, all the questions, essentially all that we were hoping for 10 or 20 years ago. I think it's all properly addressed. I think the next couple of years we're going to see a lot of more products coming out with WebRTC based on WebRTC, but also handling WebRTC. Think about firewalls and maybe also in terms of DDoS protection and maybe, I mean, one wish is actually still open is the QoS topic, quality of service, that all the internet service providers give the WebRTC traffic a priority, that you don't have to be afraid that your call is like, all these audio problems, right? So that may be happening in a couple of years, that maybe the firewalls detect, oh, here's a WebRTC call going on. I prioritize the packets automatically so that all these services using WebRTC are sounding great. And apart from that, I would say next 10, 20 years, I cannot imagine anything replacing WebRTC. So from that point of view, I think it's a pretty safe investment. And we're happily investing more into WebRTC and make sure that we're one of those services that people are using.
So Christian, I want to thank you today for giving us a big overview of WebRTC. Millions of people use it all the time without even knowing they use it. You guys have been were an early innovator in the use of it. You use it heavily, but I think you've really connected the dots today in telling us how WebRTC, retains currency is important, and also the importance of a lot of the other technologies such as VoIP phones and other things which are around us. Where can we learn more about VoIP? Where can we learn more about Vodia and the solutions you guys offer?
Yeah, so I mean, there's obviously lots of websites available. For example, there's webrtc.org. If you're really interested in the technical details, it's a good site. On our website, you can also find some information, though I wouldn't say that we're like the reference on WebRTC. I think it's great to have a conversation like that with you where we just talk about it, right? That's a first start. I think it's like under the hood talks. I think it's not really for end users, but I think for people in the industry, it's a good starting point to learn more about WebRTC. And we probably need to do more like this and just share what's going on underneath, and maybe also motivate some more people to join the train, right? Jump on the train.
Join the conversation.
Join the conversation. Use this beautiful technology. I think it's the way to go.
Well, Christian, again, I want to thank you for joining me today. We're going to look forward to our next Vodia podcast. Thank you for updating the readers on WebRTC, a topic that we report on here and there, use all the time. But thanks very much. I'll look forward to our next podcast.
Yeah, thanks for having me. Thank you.